Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we have a very needed video, and I am absolutely not sure that I am the right person to make it, but I know for a fact that I have been getting increasing amounts of questions about map 7 and questions for help. And fact of the matter is, if there is one area of the game where YouTube community and all content creators combined as a whole group has failed Marvel Coins of Champions community, that would be help with AQ and map 7 in particular. Now there are several reasons for it, which I'm gonna get in a moment, but before I get any further, just wanted to show that we do have a merch store for the channel, and this is just one of the designs that you can get. I have finally gotten some of the stock for myself as well, and I'm definitely waiting eagerly for more to arrive, because I actually do like a lot of the stuff that you can find in the merch store. So check it out in the video description below if you do like any of the KT1 or Comrade Daddy or whatever stuff, and if you do want to support the channel, definitely a very cool way to do so, and I would be thankful to you. But now back to map 7 talk. Now helping people and advising in general about map 7 is actually quite a tricky task, especially if you are not an officer or a leader. If you're an officer, I suspect you will have much better idea of what to look out for, but as a single player you never really get to play entire map 7, therefore you can never really put the best piece of advice together. At least it's a very tricky thing to do, and that's where I'm still at currently as well. Map 7 has been out for a really long time now, and I still haven't taken every single path in every single section, because typically you don't really change the map week by week. You kind of get given set instructions, and then you end up doing the same path for like 3 months in a row, and eventually when some people change in alliance or something, you might get reallocated. But as it is, like, yeah, I've done about half of the paths in each section, maybe, if that. But all those things considered, I will still try my best to help people, to try and help people who are considering making the jump to map 7. Now, the first thing to note when you start map 7, do not try to use epic modifiers, because each of the epic modifiers has actually additional layer of trickery and difficulty involved in it. And I'm gonna explain example of that, but just trust me on my word. If you want to jump to map 7 for first couple of weeks, stay away from epic modifiers, because some of those can be absolutely detrimental and soul crashing, and can be just absolute BS combinations if you're not careful, do not know exactly what you're doing. But first things first, map 7 has 3 different variations. So there are 3 different sets of map 7. They might look quite similar, but typically there are 3 different mini bosses, and the mini bosses aren't really associated with any variation, I believe, but there are 3 different sets of nodes and paths. So how do you find out on which variation you are in any given week? Now, I will, for this week, take a look at the paths that I typically do in section 1, which I'm super happy about, by the way. Path 5 is perfect for me because I don't have to wait on anybody. I can just jump in, do it at any time and go to bed, so that is awesome. But anyway, so we can see that the first fight there is Bane, Block Erosion and Oscillate, and then we're going to take a look at the second fight, and the Bane is the common node that's going to accompany me throughout the entire lane. Right, so with that, I will have to get some assistance. So first of all of the chart, the Excel spreadsheet that we're going to be discussing refers to this map, and this map in particular is quite old, but this is the one that my alliance is using. As you can see, it still uses Kingpin as a boss, but you only really need it for the map numbers, for the path numbers, because there are several different maps out there, and this is the one that my alliance uses in particular. I will leave this and the Excel spreadsheet screenshot in my Discord and in my line room, so if you think this can be useful for your alliance, you can use this map or you can use some other maps, but if you want this one, I will leave it in my Discord chat and my line room, and if you join, you can just ping me and ask me and I'll forward it to you guys. But yeah, so we can see that this is how basically we have the map numbered for each lane. We have 9 lanes in section 1, 10 lanes in section 2, and 10 lanes in section 3. Right, so that's about it. And this isn't the important bit. The important bit is this Excel spreadsheet, this beauty that basically has the main themed nodes listed for every variation. So in my case, since I do path 5, we can see that I have 2 variations with villainy and tyranny, and only 1 variation with bane. So I can immediately tell that this is variation 2, and we have the list of nodes mainly to keep in mind here. So we have Sixth Sense, Delirium, Shock, Footloose, Bane, that's basically Thunderstruck node, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, Resistance, Mesmerize plus Prove Yourself has been changed to Mixmaster plus Prove Yourself. As I said, some of this information will be slightly outdated, but yeah, instead of Mesmerize now we have Mixmaster, but still a very similar kind of node. And in section 2 we can see we have Can't Stop, Won't Stop, 80% Physical Resistance, Mighty Charge, Little League, Tunnel Vision, Lazarus, Major League, Counter Tactics plus Combo Party. I hate this path, and that's my path, and I'll explain why. Then we have Distract, Strength in Numbers, and so on and so forth. So you can immediately see what type of nodes you will have to counter. Obviously, knowing which node you will have to go up against doesn't entirely equip you well enough to know exactly what champions you will have to use, but can steer each and every single member in the right direction immediately if you kind of like post this up, post the path numbers for your members, and they can immediately understand what type of champions they will have to look at. Right, now I'm going to jump back in game, and again remember that if you want this screenshotted spreadsheet thing, and if you want the map that ASR is using, then just join the Discord or join my line room, and you can find it there, or you can ping me and I'll message it to you privately. Right, now back in the game. Another very, very important thing about map 7 is that especially when it goes to section 1 and section 2, every lane, every single lane with no exception pretty much, has a hidden trick to it, and it's up to every person to find it. Section 3 for most part is relatively straightforward. In section 3 you just counter the nodes, but there is an additional thing. Like for instance, in my path 5, the first additional thing is obviously extremely obvious, is the fact that it's Electro. So you not only need to deal with Bane, which is relatively open node to fight against, but you also need to be able to bypass Electro's abilities, or you can take a lot of damage back, especially once he's absolutely jacked on day 5. Right, the thing that illustrates the point the best, however, would be my path that I typically do in section 2, which is Counter Tactics and Combo Party. Now, Counter Tactics, the defender increases base attack by 20% for each hit. For most part, it's an annoying node, but it doesn't really scare you that much, right? Because as long as you don't get hit, you're pretty much fine. The trouble starts, however, once you go up against Void. And if you do happen to get a debuff on yourself, whether it is Suicide Masteries or whether it is Void's actual debuff being placed on you, you will quite simply immediately die, because Void's passive damage will scale with his attack, and I have quite literally lost my entire health pool in 5 ticks of a debuff when I couldn't get it off quickly. So this Void can be absolutely brutal and absolutely lethal, and you do have to be concerned and actually plan for him as you can prepare for the lanes that you do. And this is one of the fights that you definitely need to focus on. The rest of the fights, Gwenpool, Angela, Venom, Wolverine, doesn't matter. Simple fights, easy peasy. Void, however, can immediately destroy you. Especially in this case, and that is why I said do not do epic modifiers on your week 1 or week 2 or initially, because you need to grow into the epic modifiers. Because epic modifiers for most part are perfectly reasonable, but there are some absolutely insane combinations which will simply make your life quite difficult. In this case, my worst epic modifier is Cascading Failure. Critical hits against the defender trigger a timer for 2 seconds, and basically if you crit twice in a short interval, you get a debuff on you, and then you get more and more and more debuffs, right? In context of this fight particularly against Void, it would mean if I crit twice somewhere mid-fight, I immediately die. Because Void's attack is so high, thanks to Combo Party, that 3, 4, 5 ticks just kill me from full health to 0, right? And that is the trick here, but you need to play kind of like around. So when it comes to cascading failure, I typically just very, very carefully how to plan for this fight, and I either use a champion that cannot crit at all, or just trying to be like super careful or something, right? But you do have to know these things, and you do have to experience these things, and that's why you start map 7 with reasonable modifiers, like initially, and then you kind of grow into it. Another good combination to showcase how tricky it could be, there is a Hyperion map 7, and there is a modifier that basically increases the power gain and reduces the cost of special attacks based on your combo meter, and that Hyperion will just inevitably end up throwing a ton of specials if you don't have very potent power control option. Now, when it comes to Section 3, most fights are relatively straightforward. Most paths, in fact, are relatively straightforward. The theme of the Section 3 is kind of like play within the rules and have a counter. There typically isn't anything too much to worry about. But there are nodes like, for instance, Strength in Numbers and Colorblind, which can make it quite tricky, because you do need to have all your teammates alive, and you do need to know that you're going to be facing it, obviously, because you do need to have 3 different classes of attackers, or you're going to be severely disadvantaged. But in a nutshell, Section 3 typically doesn't kind of like have that highest trickery in difficulty level. Like here we have a Juggernaut on Bane, that can be tricky, obviously. Then we have Massacre on Tunnel Vision, and if you do trigger the Tunnel Vision, there's a good chance your parries will fail because that's a debuff, so on and so forth. So there are some things to worry about in Section 3, but Section 3 is by far the most tame, so to speak. All of the key aspects and key fights typically are in Sections 1 and 2. The kind of like trickier things that to look out for. For instance, this bishop used to be an absolute nightmare and can still ruin somebody's day, because it's Prove Yourself and it used to be Mesmerize, and it's a power start 1 node, right? So first and foremost, bishop, once he throws his special attacks, he hits hard in a block, and that is quite annoying. But the joke there is it's power start 1 node on a bishop, and bishop also, if you do happen to die against him, starts the next fight with X amount of power, right? So there's a good chance that you mess up. Not only you need to get to 15 hits to deal any more damage to him, but if you do happen to die, you go back in the fight, and the bishop's gonna start with like 3 bars of power, because he starts with whatever he left off with, plus another bar of power, and yeah, you could be in very thick waters there, and you would possibly have to sacrifice another champion to get past that fight. So there are definitely many things like that that I'm not aware of, because I do not do every single path, every single fight. But at the same time, I did want to put out something out there for people who are considering map 7, and I think that this could potentially be a relatively decent starting point for you guys to, first of all, have the map, have the list of nodes, second of all, know how to approach it, and again, take that piece of advice that do not start on epic modifiers. It can get very tricky very early on, and first practice it on some easier modifiers, then go to the next harder ones, and then get to the epic ones, I would say. And other than that, map 7 in itself, if you know what you're doing, really isn't all that hard or all that long. It doesn't require, as many people believe, constant logging in, stuff like that. I typically have to log in about 4 to 5 times over the 8Q day, and the better organized the alliance is, the easier it is, and really doesn't take much more time commitment than map 6 or map 5 would or did. The most important thing is to scout, look forward, know exactly what you're doing, and keep things organized. And I do know that we will have a new Alliance Quest season starting, but all of the things that I talked about in today's video should still apply, because I didn't talk about mini-boss and bosses, which is the only thing that is announced to be changing. And other than that, all the lanes, as far as I know, should remain pretty much the same. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't want to keep you guys any longer. I hope you guys found this helpful. Once again, I will post the images of that Excel spreadsheet screenshot and the map itself in my line room and in my Discord. So if you do want to get them, that you know where to do so. And yeah, other than that, I'm done here. Hope you guys find it helpful, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel.